everyone, and welcome to another Nacho Tuesday. And today we're going to be discussing HR trends in 2023 and beyond. Today I have Maulik, who is the CEO of CodeMonk.AI. I have Bryce Froberg, who is the managing member of the background check company. And we have Rattigan, who's the global head of partnerships at Deel. So without further ado, I'd love if you guys can give us a brief elevator pitch for what your company does, starting with Maulik.
Hey, thank you, Andy, for having us today, and it's great to be on this platform with Deel and the background check company. We seems to be in a similar space here, but complementary service offering. So CodeMonk is a platform for companies to build on-demand elastic tech teams, and we have got two components to that. One, and a machine learning algorithm to understand the gap in your existing team and upcoming product roadmap, and a talent marketplace from which you can source the talent to fill those gaps.
Great. And Ty, would you like to give us an introduction to Deel?
Sure, yeah. So Deel is a global HR company, and we believe that talent is distributed around the world, and we enable companies to be able to hire anyone, anywhere. So whether that's as contractors or under an employee of record model or running global payroll with employees on your own entities, Deel just makes it really, really easy to operate a global business.
Great. And Bryce, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with the background check company. It's what TBCC stands for. It's just a little bit of a long name. We do pre-employment screening and background checks for companies. So we integrate with larger ATSs and HRIS softwares, as well as just a standalone software offering to clients. So we are looking to provide any feedback on criminal history for any employees that you might be trying to hire.
It's great to hear. Yeah, and I'd love if you guys could maybe give us maybe a background on how you got to where you're at today. Starting with Ty, I guess, what got you into the HR software field?
Yeah. So I started my career at American Express and spent 5 years doing various kind of business development, marketing, account management roles. I was always really excited to get into tech, and so was fortunate to do that at a company called Optimizely, and ended up building out our partner business, especially in EMEA. And then I worked at a company called Amplitude and built out the partner business there as well. And afterwards spent a little bit of time working in venture capital. And then I later got introduced to the team at Deel. And what really got me excited about joining Deel originally was the opportunity that we have here from a partner ecosystem perspective. So whether someone's running a recruiting company, HR advisory, accounting business, like all the way through to VCs and tech companies around the world, Deel really sits in the middle of that ecosystem, and we're really invested in helping companies be successful in global HR, and working with our large base of customers. So that's what got me really excited, was the opportunity. I'll say I've spent the last year doing a real deep dive on HR and getting up to speed on things, but I've personally set up entities in the UK, helped open offices in Singapore and Japan, as a revenue leader myself, and so experienced firsthand how difficult it is to operate a global business. And so when I got to know Deel, I really got the value proposition straight away, because it is such a challenge, but also a massive opportunity for businesses when done well.
It's great. Yeah, both great companies that you worked with before. I've heard of both of them. So you're the guy behind the wizard behind the scenes. So Bryce, we'd love to hear your background as well too. How'd you get into background checks? And I know we grew up together and all that as well, but the audience would like to learn from you as well.
Yeah, no, certainly. And it's great to reconnect, Andy. I was fortunate. I kind of had this goal of owning businesses. And when I finished school, I got into trying to do that, and have met some really good entrepreneurs that have kind of brought me under and their wing from a mentorship standpoint. And as I was running my businesses, I just realized how frustrating background checks are at times. And so that was one of many pain points that business owners come across. There's, a myriad of things to solve for at any given time. And in talking with just people in the HR space and just trying to understand better, we were a small business. There are different challenges at that size than there are when you're in that mid-market to large. And so just trying to understand what the issues were, why it was so frustrating conducting background checks. And then met a gentleman that had a business in this space. And I thought he did a lot of things really, really well. and he was looking to exit, and I was looking to get into something that was kind of more in that SaaS space as well. But also just from a service standpoint, we're really focused on small to mid-sized companies and trying to bring additional value that they may not get in this space. And so that's what kind of got me in. And then the staying power has been, if we can provide enough value to our clients, they won't look anywhere else. And that's what we've been focused on.
That's great. Maulik, how'd you get into HR yourself? I know you have a background as well.
Yeah. So I would say I'm not really into an HR space, but is a part of what I have been doing. So my background has always been into product management. I've been a product manager for many companies, like big multinationals like Wall Street Journal, Visa, Microsoft, and all. But I've been also involved in a lot of startups, first person on the ground and building the whole product and product teams to deliver the product strategy. And the big frustration I always had was your product roadmap keeps on changing pretty much every other day, but you're stuck with the team that you recruited for. And you may build the best team for your roadmap or your current product or business requirements, but within few weeks that requirements change and your team may not be able to evolve as quickly as you want them to. So you always have this lag between when you need the skills and when you have the skills, because recruitment is very reactive. So that's where the idea came in, that hey, you know what, we want to build something where you can just tap into the skills as and when you want to. And as we started researching more, we discovered a lot of problems, like contracts, like freelance versus permanent, the worker classifications, on-demand hiring. You always have come with a budget. So where do you go for skills when you're not able to find skills in your local market? So you go for the remote work and so on. So that's all what we were trying to solve for. So we ended up building this talent marketplace, which I believe there are plenty of other marketplace out there as well. But our differentiation was this whole finding the gap in your existing team. And we are trying to solve for upcoming product roadmap. So we are trying to be predictive of what's coming next for you to deliver your roadmap. What is your gap in your existing team, and how do you fill that gap quickly? And that's what we want to focus on now. The employer of record, freelance hiring, and all that. I'm proud to say we are one of the partner of Deel. So we just leave that for our clients to work directly with partner like that. Also, background checks with other partners is what we do. But we want to focus purely on matching your product, the gap in your product roadmap, and the skills in your team, and try to fill that.
Great. So AI has been a hot topic lately, of course. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard the buzzword, right? How do you see AI affecting the job market, today and in the future, as well as the hiring process itself?
Um, I can take the lead here because we are already working on it. Um, See, AI has been out there for a long period of time. I would say 50, 60 years, maybe longer. What's happening now is that is becoming pretty much mainstream. The processing power has increased, the data models are there. So it's really getting smarter and smarter. And that's impacting how every single thing is done. Um, and it's surprising to see that a lot of AI actually works in the background without a lot of people understanding or realizing that. Probably this call, there is some background AI processing going on in this video stream and all, which we don't probably know. And that has been happening for a long period of time. And as with this whole chat GPT and the other models are coming out, there's suddenly an explosion of this AI startup and huge investment going in that space. I don't think it's going to displace a lot of jobs. Sorry, it is going to remove a lot of jobs, but it probably will displace a lot of jobs from one specialism to another specialism.
Yeah.
And talking specifically within the HR or recruitment space, I think from my point of view, we when you're trying to recruit, you're trying to create the JD, you're trying to match the candidate manually, you are trying to do keyword search and so on. I think all those mundane tasks can be easily automated using AI. So hopefully, you identify it, you press a button, and you have the best candidate available to you anywhere in the world.
Yep.
Right? You don't have to worry that hey, can I get this person tomorrow or not? Currently you wait like what 30 days, 60 days to get that person onboarded, and probably those waiting periods, that period will go away.
That's great to hear. What do you think about that, Ty or Bryce?
Yeah, we're also working a ton on AI internally. We have an amazing team spun up of engineers and writers who are, starting with enabling our internal team to be able to operate more efficiently. Like Deel has across the 100+ countries that we operate in, just a extremely broad wealth of knowledge. And so making that really easy for people to access. Previously someone would use Notion or like a wiki or something like that, and being able to use AI to be able to like conversationally make those types of things available is really helpful. And so I think like a lot of companies are going to, maybe people are seeing this as an opportunity for efficiency, but like in actuality, we'll see this as a way to enable people to be more successful in their current roles. And so I do think that from an employee engagement and from an employee happiness perspective, we're going to see amazing improvements through AI tools. I do also think that there is opportunities for people to like improve the candidate process, like interviewing, providing people information throughout the process, like keeping everyone up to date. Like that's going to be able to get a lot more tight with the tools that people are developing, and I'm really excited to see that as well. I think the fears of there being a big negative impact from AI, at least in the near term, are probably overblown.
That's great to hear.
I really hope it is going to be overblown. But I do think there are areas where it can help out tremendously. You think about the diamond in the rough, or kind of product market fit, if we can use a different terminology, when you're looking at talent that you're bringing in. Do they fit with your culture, your company? We have a partner company that utilizes AI to do a DISC assessment on applicants. They can see, do they fit their persona that they're looking to hire for in that position. So when you look at like larger retailers with a lot of locations, they know what a successful manager looks like from a persona standpoint. And so they're utilizing a DISC assessment to see, are these applicants a fit for us from a persona standpoint? And then we can train them and onboard them, but do they come with the right mentality, the right attitude? And so I hope it's used consistently as a way to complement the hiring process, and doesn't become kind of that replacement factor. But a lot of really cool things going on. It just depends on what's going to stick and what's going to add the most value.
Yep, certainly. We're still very much in the early days, and I definitely agree with all of you guys. I think it's an exciting time with the way that technology is moving. So we'll see what the next few years look like. But yeah, hopefully it doesn't displace too many jobs. I feel like there's going to be a lot of jobs that maybe change a little bit. And, to your guys' point, a lot of people are going to be able to focus on the work that really matters to them and for the organization, and maybe let AI do some of the, some of the repetitive work that nobody wants to do anyway. Moving on from AI, there's many HR tools out there. So what are some simple tricks, I guess, Ty, that you would recommend for HR managers and business owners to use to find and attract the best talent?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there's a great selection of tools for sure. Deel partners with all of them, so we don't pick favorites. I do think like the thing that's really important, especially in this environment, is running like a really smooth, tight process on hiring bringing in new candidates, making sure that your job description's really accurate and also like kind of friendly and accessible, so that you're getting the right candidates in the pipeline, and just making it really simple to qualify people in and out. The reality is that there have been a ton of layoffs, and so there are some amazing candidates out in the market that weren't available a year or 2 years ago, and so like there's a great talent pool to go out and access, and at the same time it's still competitive, and you have to run a really, really tight process. So getting a good ATS in place, getting great job descriptions in place, like being really clear about your benefits, like getting a good scheduling tool, like all of those things that you can implement to like run a really tight process is awesome. The thing that we see a lot working at Deel is like people still want the flexibility to be able to either work from home or also work from other places. And so, where someone wants to be able to work in a distributed way or be able to work in other countries or have that flexibility, having the option for someone to be employed as a contractor or also quickly in another location is a real benefit as well, especially for like hard to get hires. And so we've seen Deel be like a real benefit as part of that stack also.
That's a great point. Yeah, and a lot of companies, especially startups, in a competitive job market, even if there is talent out there, there's always, everybody's competing for the best of the best, right? And they get snatched up quickly. But using perks like remote work, like you mentioned, there's a lot of little perks that a lot of startups can offer these days that can attract some of the top talent, even if they're underpaid compared to like what they can go get working at a Fortune 500. Selling that vision for the product that you're working on and what your startup's going to accomplish. Some people really value equity. And so, think in terms of like what kind of a package you can put together to offer this talent to attract them over to your startup, even if, you might not be able to compete dollar wise with some of the bigger companies out there. Bryce, where do you see some new opportunities in the technology space as far as jobs are concerned? Obviously, we mentioned AI. Do you see any other areas, areas of opportunity for people to get into the technology space given recent trends?
Yeah, I think Ty actually hit the nail on the head with something that I'm finding to be more and more interesting. You look at some of these larger tech companies, very sophisticated, talented employment pools that have been laid off, right? And so now those people need to go somewhere. They need to be able to provide for themselves. And we're seeing that start to kind of leach into maybe some of those smaller companies or industries that maybe weren't their first choice out the gate. And I think what we're going to see there, you look at leisure and hospitality, that's one sector that's growing quite quickly right now as far as employment goes. That took a pretty big dive during the pandemic. That's coming back. They may now have access to a slightly different talent pool than they did before. Alaska Airlines came out with a really nice article recently as well, just talking about how they've had success hiring tech talent that are going to help support their goals down the road, where they may not have had that chance when Facebook, Twitter, Microsoft were hiring a little more aggressively. So where it's going to go, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that we're going to see industries take on a technology adoption in maybe a different way with access to a little more talent that's in that software engineering, software development space, might allow them to execute on their goals a bit quicker, which will be exciting to see. And then those employees that are there, again, will adapt and either be displaced into other roles or take on a job somewhere else. But I think we're going to see a really nice influence in the retail hospitality space from technology.
It's great to hear. Maulik, moving up a question for you. What do you think are the biggest bottlenecks in scaling a team effectively? You run a relatively large organization over there. What kind of tips would you have for helping teams scale and companies get past that seed to a high growth stage?
To be honest, in my experience, I think, of course, there can be a number of reasons, but the two that I found quite impactful when it comes to being the bottleneck, and something that I myself is guilty of, is number one, having unrealistic expectation of what you're looking to hire, and number two, the process you design to basically get that person, which you set the bar so high, and then you're just waiting and going through the process over and over, filtering a lot of candidates, and you never find it. And by the time you find someone at the end, the opportunity is already gone. And that has happened to me a number of times. So I think that those two would be the biggest one for me. And just building on that, I think the solution, which I would suggest, is number one, be more realistic on what you're expecting from the candidates. There is never a perfect match. Even in dating or marriage, there is never a perfect partner. You have to make it perfect. And similarly, I think it goes in tech, or when you're hiring for people, you're never going to find the perfect ideal candidate. If you get one, you're incredibly lucky, but 99% of the time you're not going to. So find the most optimal or most suitable candidate for the task to be done, and just make it work between your existing team and that person, and be very real about the expectation that, hey, if it's a short-term engagement, then just focus on getting your immediate priorities completed, versus hiring someone for a long period of time. And so then you really want to hire for the long-term vision, not for your immediate needs and priorities, right? So just work on that.
Perfect. Yeah, the grass is green where you water it, right?
Yes.
Ty, so what? Kind of rolling off his point there, bringing on a new team member, it's very important that you onboard him correctly. What would you say are some of the most critical things that a hiring manager should do in the first couple of weeks to make sure that a team member is onboarded properly and they feel comfortable in their new role?
Yeah, it's so critical, having a great onboarding plan for new hires. You spend so much time searching for the right candidate, like going through that whole process, and then if you don't onboard them and ramp them successfully, it's such a massive waste of time. So I mean, having again really clear documentation on the expectations of the role, like how success is measured, like what success would look like in the first week, first 30 days, like having a really simple checklist for them to do, ideally having like a training program already established, enablement set up, setting them up with a buddy that they can work really closely with through that time, someone that's going to meet with them every day and just kind of check in on how everything's going, like do they have questions, and then like just like providing connections and support into other departments in the business as well. Deel's a completely remote company, and so even more so this is important where you're remote and you overhear conversations in the office or go and do coffee breaks with or lunches with people. You have to have all of this stuff be very considered and well documented and proactive. And so, yeah, like really thinking about that in advance. We have a template for every role, but we really customize it for every new person based on like their existing experience in our industry and their background.
Great. Do any of you guys have any funny stories or experiences being a hiring manager, without naming names, of course, that you might want to share with the audience?
I have one. So we were hiring for this role. I can't remember what role it was, but this candidate comes up, and I always start with a very basic questions like, "Hey, tell me what is 2 + 2 is equal to?" Right, and answer is 4. And so I asked some very simple questions like primary school mathematics and all. And the one of the simple question he could not answer, and I said like, hey, this is like primary school stuff, and you should know. Even my receptionist would know. And he got so offended about that, and then he ended up walking away from the interview, and then he called up the HR manager complaining about me for asking that question.
Yeah, that's an important thing about HR. It's always walking a fine line.
Yeah. And the thing is, this happened within the first like couple of minutes. I did not even get to the point where I would actually ask relevant question to the project. It was just getting him warmed up to the whole interview process, just to break the ice and getting started on, hey, what, let's start something easy. But he felt offended about that.
I've had people before ask, how much you're going to pay me? And like the whole conversation was around, so what do I get? And you're like, well, can we talk about your skills first?
Yeah.
We've had a little bit of fun with that as well, Andy. And one of the things that kind of hits me is we ask some questions that are maybe less formal. Hey, what's something about you that we wouldn't learn just through a normal traditional interview process? Or what's a skill set maybe that you have that won't show up at work? And the stuff that we've had now employees or former employees or people that we missed out on, the talent that people have is so robust, and it's so much more than just the job description they're applying for, right? They're obviously trying to put their best foot forward. But one of the things that not necessarily, it was suggested to me, it's not my idea, but we really try to humanize the interview process. That can be a pretty stressful time for people. Some people just from an anxiety standpoint just aren't great during the interview process. And so we try to humanize that process because, to Ty's point, during that onboarding process, we'll assign either a mentor from a different division, so there's not this conflict of interest potentially. But we want to have a basis for a relationship maybe that isn't just I'm great with Excel or I'm great at onboarding new clients or whatever it may be, right? That's a little more transactional. And I'll tell you what, we have some very talented people in some very weird ways at the company, just hobbies that they do outside of work that we never would have thought of. So kind of a cool way to get to know your coworkers that way, if you can get outside of the scripted questions.
Yeah, there's a lot more than shows up on resumes, right? And I think a lot of those soft skills and the personalities of people really, comes through. And if you interview for that, a good, strong character can, overcome pretty much any challenge that you throw at them, even if they might not, look the part on their resume initially, that somebody else might. So those are always great questions to ask. Good point. How about you, Ty?
Yeah, great questions. I have had, like, working in a remote environment, situations where people haven't received their laptops, and like going back to the funny story situation, like people will be a week in and still don't have a laptop, and like they're working off of their phone or whatever. We have a great partnership with a company called Hoffy at Deel, where like we do like equipment delivery, and so like we don't run into that problem as much internally, but definitely the last like 3-4 years, I'm embarrassed to say how many times people haven't received their laptop on time, or like, haven't been provisioned access to their emails on their first day. There's definitely some of that stuff where it's like, you're trying to chase someone down because you think they haven't shown up for work, and actually like they didn't get their Slack or email access, and you can't, and you don't have the cell phone number, for instance. So there's definitely some like hiccups and headaches that we had to overcome with that.
Yeah, like I can't get to the checklist yet. I can't do all this stuff on my phone.
Yeah, or like I didn't know I had a checklist. I don't have access to Google Drive yet.
Security protocols.
I'll tell a funny story on that one. So one big global multinational telco I work for, they couldn't get the laptops ready for their in-office teams. Like 30 days after they have joined, so they're coming like every single day and just can't do any work.
So they started like talking to all the employees and distracting them.
Yeah, and that wasn't even remote. That was like in-office working, and their IT team was in the office, and still they took like a month to get the laptops issued.
Oh, that'd be an awkward situation. So there are many HR tools out there, and feel free to plug your own, of course. What are some tips, I guess, for hiring managers or business owners to look for when they're trying to pick the right HR tool for them? And feel free to plug your products as well. Go ahead, Maulik.
I think there are plenty of tools out there, and most of the tools have a lot of overlap from one tool to another. And I would say, of course, use CodeMonk for your sourcing of the talent, global talent. We're trying to be alternative to LinkedIn, so I would definitely vouch for it. But apart from that, I think you have Deel is an amazing tool for your remote teams. There's Oyster HR, which is a remote HR platform as well, but they offer a lot more features on top of the employer of record provider. That's an amazing platform as well. Workday is good, but Workday, I think it works mainly for SMBs and LEs. It does not really work well for startup. It's probably too expensive and prohibitive for startup. Personio recently has been doing very well. So I think these are some of the tools that I can think of are really well designed in this space.
Great point. How about you, Bryce?
Yeah, I think my suggestion is more high level. I would say, to Maulik's point, there are different tools based on your size. And there's also different tools that I think are maybe more compatible based on industry. Now, I believe people in HR have a lot on their plate. There are a tremendous amount of challenges to try to not only evaluate what to be utilizing, but also during that hiring process, there are challenges. And so it's really, for lack of a better analogy, you go out, if you go out and buy a kid's shoes, you usually get them a half size or a size bigger than they are just because they're growing so fast, right? You kind of want to look at your HR software that way as well. Is, okay, well, where are we realistically going in the next 12, 24, 36 months? Is this software too robust, or is this going to help us get there? And I think you want to view it from that perspective, because there are some very, very robust, but also expensive tools out there that would potentially be a phenomenal benefit if you scale to where you think you're going to be. But don't get too far ahead of yourself. Use the right tool for where you're at as a company. Again, that's high level, but that's really what I would say. There are a lot of really, really strong HR tools out there, but it depends on what you're looking to accomplish, and then also what industry you're in at times as well.
That's a great point. Yeah, I like the analogy of kids growing into their shoes, because obviously as a company you want to be growing, so you should be looking ahead and in terms of where you might be 6 months to a year, and if that software is actually still going to serve your needs based on your projected growth. Maulik, a lot of startup founders are always looking for a technical co-founder, and they might be non-technical. What would you recommend for non-technical founders to attract a technical founder to be a part of their team, or maybe their first engineer on their team?
Okay, interesting question. I work for a lot of startups, and often I have been the first person on the ground. So I can talk from my own personal experience. I think a lot of founders, the mistake they make is that they're just not sharing their idea properly or not in the full effect. They're trying to be too protective about it. They think that, hey, if I talk about my idea, someone is going to steal that, right?
Yep.
In my opinion, ideas are useless. It doesn't matter. You tell your ideas to 100 people, if someone can execute better than you, let it be. So never be afraid of really selling your idea to everyone you meet. Not only the tech talent, but anyone you meet, and get feedback and really iterate on it. And once you get the buy-in in the idea from, let's say, one of the potential tech person that you're looking to bring on board, you'd really want that person to commit to that vision and that idea for a long period of time. You're not looking for a developer who can just come in and develop your MVP or write some lines of code to get some the landing page out. That's not your CTO or the first hire. So avoid that. And second, there are plenty of platforms out there where you can get tech talent comment on your idea, give feedback to you, and also team up with you to make that a reality. It could be that person may want to come as a co-founder or not, but at least it will help you get the initial hacky beta prototype out. So Reddit, I think they have a public forum where you can post your idea and people can respond to it. There's Indie Hacker, where again there's a full thread of co-founders. So you put your idea, people will comment on it and will give you feedback and work with you to develop that. So I think there are quite a few platforms out there where you can do that.
That's a great point. Thanks for the recommendation. We have a lot of startups and younger companies as well as SMBs and whatnot that follow our platforms. So those type of tips are very helpful for them. So now that we're in a global business environment, Ty, could you elaborate on the opportunity available for companies now to expand globally, and what are the pitfalls of that?
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right. There's a ton of reasons why we're entering into a truly global business environment. One is like the expanded access of internet around the world, and they're really becoming a global culture of business rather than nuanced local business cultures like it has been historically. And that has opened a huge opportunity for businesses to be able to expand globally. Also, the reality is that we're operating in an environment of the lowest unemployment rate in the US and many other tier one markets around the world, and so it's incredibly difficult to hire top talent, even with more availability happening at the moment. So between those two things and a bunch of other factors, it's never been more important for companies to be able to look abroad, to be able to grow scalably, expand revenue, access new customers. The pitfalls that so there's a bunch of opportunities there, right? The pitfalls that we often see are people will get slowed down in the administrative burden of doing. I've set up an office in Japan. And it took us 18 months to get the entity established before we could even start hiring someone, and even then we set up an office and it took us another 24 months to realize we shouldn't have an office in Japan, and it wasn't a good market for us. And so that whole MVP fail fast type thing doesn't work, when you're having to go through these really bureaucratic governmental processes. And so figuring out how to test markets quickly and easily and be data driven, and if you can set up contractors or people that are willing to be more flexible about working in those markets, then it's a really smart approach, because you can kind of figure out where your highest opportunity markets are, where you're going to be able to have the highest impact, and deploy resources there Because the reality is that like some markets are going to be great for some companies and others aren't, and it's really important to get that right before you burn a ton of resources and revenue.
Great points. Well, I really appreciate all of you guys coming on today, talking about HR trends in 2023 and beyond. I think our audience is able to walk away from this learning a lot. Obviously, you guys have a lot of experience in this space, so I really appreciate your time coming on today. And Ty with Deel, Maulik with CodeMonk, and Bryce Froberg with the Background Check Company. I definitely recommend everybody that's following NachoNacho to go check out these great, amazing HR tools. You can find them today in the NachoNacho B2B SaaS marketplace, the best place to manage, discover, and save on SaaS. Once again, these are great tools from some great entrepreneurs and business leaders, and I highly recommend you check them out today. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks
everyone.